And I'm sorry to get political, but I'm just going to be honest. We haven't felt like ourselves since Barack Obama. I just think he was such a slick snake. He was this affable guy who was like wearing good suits and looked the part and sounded the part and dressed the part, but was so divisive in his messaging. The left, they look at you like when you say this, they don't know what you're talking about. It's like, because you don't pay attention to the other half of the country. You only pay attention to your absurd news sources, which spin and spin and spin to protect Democrats, especially if they're named Obama. He's the one who started to inject race where no one had been doing it. He's the one who started to use his pen and the phone to shove things down our throat that we didn't want. He's the one who shoved through an entitlement on our health care and our personal doctor visits that he promised he wouldn't mess with, and then he did, really hurting people, causing massive anger and open lies. He never missed an opportunity to twist the knife on the racial issue. He would do it subtly and in his own way, but it was very clear what he was doing. For the first time, we had a president who weighed in on legal cases before they'd played out. We never did that. That was a taboo that had never been crossed before him. And Donald Trump was the reason Barack Obama, reverse that. Barack Obama was the reason Donald Trump came about, that he was born as a political figure. They say Trump's divisive. He was the antidote. He was the answer to the divisiveness of Barack Obama. And we just haven't felt like.
I am TJ, and this is Life Lessons. The first question I want to ask is to Megan. We haven't felt like ourselves. What does that exactly mean? What does that exactly mean? You haven't felt like yourself, or we haven't felt like ourselves. What is ourselves? That's first thing. Second thing, to a degree, I agree with you that things have not been the same, if you will, since Obama, but not for the same reasons. I said in a comment that what the election of President Obama showed, it exposed what was always there. Well, what are you talking about, Hayden? It's like an anthill. Have you ever been walking along the grass and you see like a little bit of a little bit of pile of dirt, but you don't think much of it. But you don't know what's going on underneath that little hill because you don't see any ants. It's just some unsettled dirt until you step on it. And if you stay there, if your foot's there, they converge on you, and then they start to sting and bite you. All the while, the ants have been working underneath the whole time, but you didn't know it until you stepped on it, until you stepped on what was theirs. That's what happened with the election of President Obama. And in as much as I was excited for this, this major event in history, I was also scared because I knew what that would mean. I knew. Now, understandably, it just wasn't black folks that got him elected, so I'm not talking. I'm not talking about the other uh, demographic of people to help him get elected. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking to who I'm talking to. Because at 58, I've seen some presidents. I've been around for a minute. That was when he was elected. That was the first time I ever saw any blatant and outward disrespect toward a commander in chief. And mind you, I've worn a uniform since 1986. I will never forget that while he was giving some type of address to Congress, somebody shouted out, called him a liar. I had never seen that. I had never, when I was out of the military, by the time working for as a civil servant, I had never seen soldiers openly display their angst and ire toward a sitting commander in chief to the extent there were several. I remember I worked on a military installation at this time, and I remember seeing a bumper sticker with some very derogatory phrase about the sitting commander in chief. Because see, when I raised my right, it was not with respect to whoever was in office. Period. Whether I voted for him or not. Of course, I had my own ideas and opinions about whoever was in office, even to include President Obama. But because of what I was taught, what was instilled in me, I respected the office, whether I liked the person in it or not. And just so we're clear, there were things that President Obama did and or didn't do that I did not agree with. But that is when I saw it. And I can give you another example personally. The year is roughly 99, maybe 2000. My mother called because President George W. was in office at the time, and I'm on active duty. My mom was going off about something that he was doing or not doing. I can't remember because it was before 9/11. And we were on the phone talking. And I said, Mommy, I can't talk about that. I understand. I said, but he's my commander in chief. Now, mind you, I'm in the privacy of my own home, talking to my mother. But because out of respect for the position and me as a uniformed service member, I said, Mommy, I can't talk about that. I'm not gonna engage in this conversation because he's my boss. So, and yeah, he may have called out some certain things. Why? Because he looked like the people that certain atrocities were targeted towards. So no, it may have not have been called out before because you never had nobody in office that looked like the people that were being affected. And even if they thought it wasn't him. So you say that President Trump is the antidote. Really? That's not what I see. You talked about how President Obama went after the healthcare and enforced that on people. But what about, and he promised he wouldn't. Well, President Trump promised that he wouldn't go after Social Security and all these other things, only that we find out that he has. And it may not be as overt as one may have thought. But I say once, I say it 1,000 times. If you cut the people who are in charge of administering the programs and processing the applications for the programs, you are affecting the program. So suffice it to say, anyone that has held that office, you ain't gonna please everybody, even the people that voted for you. You're not. But for you to say we haven't been like ourselves, what does that mean exactly? Do you mean that someone actually called out the inequities? What do you mean? And you said, and when you looked at you look had such anger in your facial expression, affable with his suits and this, that, and the other. Now, what would you have said had he not had those suits? And that was another thing. And it showed Black people that you can be highly educated, highly qualified, and they still see you as beneath. And I'm not talking about everybody. I'm talking about who I'm talking to. I'm talking to who I'm talking to. Because the man had every check blocked. No scandal, because if there was, it would be out by now. But still, somehow, what happened to Charlie Kirk is because of Barack Obama. So I'm going to end it like I began. It was always there. But he was the one to expose it when he was elected. Because by electing him, stepped on the anthill. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Take that with you.